Orphatique by Anton Yu. Copyright 2023 Anton Yu. All rights reserved. Translation and notes copyright 2023. Anton Yu. Translated by Anton Yu. Cover design by Anton Yu. Photographs by Arthur Kravtsov, Irina Sidorenko, Anton Yu. This is how I become a part of this world. Everyone disappears when you least expect it. Ada Avalievna, the incessant old bitch, disappeared from the neighbor's view for 3 days, and all these bastards suddenly realized it and started banging on her door early in the morning. Well, between us, it was hard not to notice her disappearance because everyone suddenly exhaled and calmed down, knowing no one would be judged for anything. It was about 8 in the morning. Of course, I usually don't sleep at this time if I spend the night at home. But this time, I didn't spend the night at home because I happened to visit Eva. I think I told you about her. Eva, my friend, always boasted about her unprotected liaisons in bed, especially when it came to mulatto men. She was ready to give herself wholly to them and grind herself to dust just to have another dark-skinned man inside her. But more on that later. The neighbors were banging on Ada Avalievna's door, and for the sake of decency, I decided to come out, pretending to care. Admittedly, the thought that the old creature had croaked and I would finally stop being a tootsie delighted me, but I was sure I couldn't be that lucky in the morning. Oh, how I was wrong. How wrong I was. But let's take it step by step. So, yesterday Eva called me and said I had to know this. I pondered and went to my friend with no particular plans for the day and evening. To my surprise, she was home alone, and there was not a single man in her bed, as odd as it sounds. She greeted me naked, as always, standing in the doorway, apparently assuming that it would surprise me as it usually surprises the lucky ones she invites for the second time. But no. I go through these tricks every time I visit her. Having no slightest desire to engage in pleasantries like greetings and other nonsense, I immediately asked. What is it? What do you mean? Eva was surprised. Don't pretend to be dumber than you are. What urgent thing should I know? Oh, that. Eva replied, slightly chuckling. Great. You're also mocking. Well? Spit it out. Are you in a hurry? She inquired. Her voice was insanely sexy, as if it was not me standing in front of her but another mulatto. Besides, like any true female, she first decided to pry out everything that interested her before answering my questions. Let it be, I thought. Let it be. I'm not in a hurry, dear. You know I don't have the habit of rushing anywhere. Ah, yes, I interrupted her lustful tone and said, are you confused? This is me. Not your usual suitors, but me. I know it's you. You're a Jew, not a mulatto. Sorry, kitty. I smiled and didn't respond to that. So, what was I supposed to find out? Honestly, Eva smiled, nothing. I just wanted to meet you and didn't know how to drag you over. You succeeded. Though I was free today and would have come to you anyway. Nice to hear. Shall we go inside, or are you having another exhibitionism attack? Oh, you're right. My friend suddenly realized. Most people who see Eva for the first time think she's under the heavy influence of some narcotic or psychotropic substances because of her tone and intonations, slowed voice, and behavior. Additionally, when the cat inside her awakens, hunting for mulattoes, her sexy voice sounds even stranger. Thus, Eva is not always taken seriously, but she is a good friend. You got company? Not anymore. Marcel left about 30 minutes ago. Marcel, huh? To be honest, I'm not sure that's his name. I made it up for him. He doesn't know it either. We met last night at a club. He wasn't very sober, I mean, you know. That's it. Don't go on. I've known you for years. Suddenly I felt funny and laughed. Eva didn't think long, threw her head back, and started laughing like crazy. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang. "Are you expecting someone?" I asked. "Let's see." Eva, who hadn't worn anything since I'd come to see her, ran to open the door. Before I could sit down on the sofa, another mulatto entered the apartment. Yes, another mulatto. "It's so unexpected, Marcel. So unexpected. But I ain't Marcel. Eva, I ain't Marcel," spoke the mulatto's rich and sweet voice. "Fuck it," my friend said and beckoned him into bed with a simple index finger motion. I was about to leave, of course, when non-Marcel grabbed me by the arm and followed him into Eva's bed. I tried to refuse, but his strong hands were already stripping me of all my clothes in no time. To be honest, I didn't really want to have sex with a stranger whose face I could see now. Yes, he wasn't good looking, but I didn't know him. A thought flashed through my mind as to what I was doing. But that thought didn't keep up with the non-Marcel's actions. Eva was delighted by my presence. But suddenly, as non-Marcel and I stood naked in front of her, she said, looking at me, "Honey, no offense, but I'm not giving you or sharing with you this coffee boy. I'd really like you to pour yourself some wine, have a cigarette, and take a seat in the chair that's opposite the bed right now. Take your hands to yourself." Having said this, she laughed very much and dragged the non-Marcel away into the space of the sheets. The evening flowed smoothly into the night. The wine in my glass was making me groggy. The thought flashed through my mind again that it would not be advisable for me to drink alcohol, but the situation itself disposed me to do so. Besides, I was sure that in about 2 hours, Eva would be satiated and let me play with them. With the amount of wine I drank, tart and slightly sour, spicy flavored, I realized more and more that I wanted to blend in with them tonight. But now I was forced to admire the lovemaking of this sweet couple and sip the wine leisurely. Smoking cigarette after cigarette, I finished my second bottle. Suddenly, I remembered what I had been asked to do. Naked, I touched myself and made myself feel good. It seemed that when I looked at Eva and her next suitor, I could smell their fusion, and that drew me in. And in that, I saw today's paradise. After a few minutes, the wine taste in my mouth mingled with the pleasant taste of Eva's suitor's saliva. Opening my eyes, I realized he was intimate with me, not Eva. The stubble of his, scratching my cheeks and lips. "And it feels good." He gently nibbles my earlobes and neck. My insides were boiling. I didn't realize what I was doing. Abruptly, I felt a gaze on me, hot and passionate. It was Eva's gaze. I looked at her questioningly because I thought she wouldn't let her partner go to me. On the contrary, Eva's eyes were burning, and she was licking her lips. I understood what she wanted. And I didn't resist. Her right hand traveled down my stomach, and 3 fingers began to slowly penetrate. At the same time, non-Marcel slid his hot tongue over me. I could feel him shivering and suddenly thought I was shivering a little, too. My nipples, wet with the young mulatto's saliva, seemed to glow. They were blazing. It was as if non-Miguel realized that a little more and my milk would run down his heated throat, so he tried to slow things down. He decided to occupy my hands with himself. He took my right hand and kissed it. Then placed my index finger in his mouth, licked it greedily, and pulled my hand to his buttocks. I looked at Eva, she was getting high. After a moment, she came over to us and began to mechanically help me penetrate the non-Marcel. First, with 1 finger. Then, with 2. After some more time, she licked 2 fingers of her right hand and entered, as well. I was afraid that the non-Marcel would be in pain. But alas, he turned out to be used to it from the looks of it. He moaned and seemed flying off somewhere in paradise, licking me and inhaling my scent. Unawares, he looked into my eyes and said, "I love you." I kept silent, as I was far from love and everything that was connected with it. And me? Eva asked jealously and at the same time with a smile. Non-Marcel looked at her surprised and said no. She laughed. Just kidding, you idiot. My favorite friend yelled like a lunatic. Fuck me to the point of indecency. Non-Marcel smiled at her, and suddenly I felt a sharp warmth in my lower abdomen. His hot mouth slid into me, and I was already on edge. Eva's fingers and mine slid unceasingly inside the young mulatto. I felt his warmth inside, his tenderness there, and I realized that just a moment more and I would burst. And so it happened. In a few minutes, Non-Marcel was greedily swallowing my cum, as if afraid to spill a single drop. Eva and I were moving faster and faster inside Marcel, and I suddenly decided to take on his face, and in just a couple minutes, he was coming profusely on the carpet. We abruptly collapsed, exhausted, and started lying down. I reached for a cigarette and gave everyone one. We lay there. We were smoking. And we were high. Non-Marcel took my hand and put it around his. With his other hand, he asked me to stroke his black hair. Like Daddy, he said and smiled. At 5 in the morning, I was already home. The Zoloft had the most positive effect on me. My dreams have become more vivid, and now they are pleasurable. I wake up and realize that everything in this world is so fitting that sometimes even incomprehensible to us, fragile, miserable, and essentially useless, my hand does not rise even to write the word, creatures. I wake up and realize that everything around me is in its proper place, that everything I want is being carried away. I have fallen in love with myself. It's been 4 years since I was told I would be happy once I loved myself. I have been slowly realizing how beautiful I am and what a beautiful body I have. It has also been a long time coming to the realization of my uniqueness. Today, here and now, I realize that the only person I am comfortable with to the extreme is myself. This kind of realization made my head feel light at first, then cold. Overall, I would describe this state as pleasant. I realized my genius. With the love of my appearance, I developed a love for my every manifestation. No, I certainly don't want to sound like a narcissistic idiot who teeters on the edge between schizophrenia and narcissism. Nonetheless, realizing myself as an object of love and beauty makes me see even my reflection in the mirror differently. So, by loving my appearance, I acquired some other kinds of self-love. For example, I began to love my fingers very much. They are so smooth and long that they could glide fairy-like across a piano's gorgeous and perfect keys. They, exquisite and always warm, could caress the bodies of young males and females, giving them a depth of pleasure from which they could, I vouch, shriek, moan, choke, and gasp. They, my fingers, exist with me. They touch various objects and leave my footprints. They stroke my body and make me feel shivers in my knees and feet. They, the most delicate and ethereal, gracefully hold another morning cigarette and subtly flick the ash away. It is my fingers, they, that help me wash my body and touch myself in other places. This morning I suddenly realized that I like the smell of my own urine. It's vibrant and sweet when you hold yourself back long enough to go to the bathroom in the morning. The smell of my urine fills the entire restroom space, and I melt into it. If I could collect that smell, I'd have it in my place of honor. After yours, of course, honey. I would also dream of dipping a scrap of fabric in it so that when I miss it, I could pull it out furtively and inhale it, on the subway, on the trolley, or just on the street. In the winter, I think, when there is snow everywhere and frost, this scent will be even more palpable. Now, I have a new habit. Every morning when I wake up, I lie down and keep myself off the toilet so that the amount of urine is more abundant and its smell is more transparent and pungent. Sweet, it puts me into ecstasy and seems to take me to some land where everything is always good. What's funniest is that I have this habit because of you. Remember when we lived together, we sniffed each other's underwear? Your scent there was always precious to me, and I always wanted to preserve it. Now that you're not around, it seems to me that our odors, mixed, crossed, melded, and of course, intertwined, and now I smell there the way you smell there. You smell like me in there. I'm sure of it. And anyone who dares to snuggle up to you there will smell not your scent, my scent. No one else will ever know you in your purest form. No one. No one. No one. My piss smell is the same as yours now, too. Hell, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have realized it. The smell of my pee has made me love mornings. As evening comes, I'm already waiting for morning to begin because when I wake up, I'll lie down for about another half hour, only to run to the bathroom at the last minute and let an inevitable part of myself go. Having released its odor, my urine will henceforth exist outside of me. It will mix with the water and then with the urine and feces of the other occupants of the front yard and flow. I'll no longer be able to control it. I'll no longer be able to marvel at her smell today. But tomorrow, when morning comes, I will find myself in the same situation again and greedily inhale the scent of new urine, to which I'll also say goodbye, and so in a circle. This is how I mix with the water of the world. This is how I became part of this world. Walking through the apartment, it was hard not to be surprised at how well-meaning and cleanest old lady shit her square meters. The whole hallway seemed to be piled with numerous tons of old magazines and newspapers from the 60s to 80s, tied up with ropes. Taking 2 steps forward, on the left, one could see an unclosed door to the bathroom, which was combined with a restroom. This is where the most exciting part began. First of all, it should be noted that the respected Ada Avalievna had soiled all the walls with feces. Presumably her own. Apparently, she was becoming part of this world. She wanted immortality. Her palm prints must have been everywhere, and even on the ceiling. Admittedly, it was hard to say where the stench was more imposing and disgusting. My gagging could barely be contained. Although, this place was so filthy that it would be disgusting to vomit there. There were several pairs of dentures lying in the wash basin, also stained with Adotchka fucking Avalievna's feces. Honestly, even the thought of how that old fuck had managed to shit all over the walls made me cringe, but also hilarious. Covering my nose with my collar, I realized I couldn't stay here much longer. Especially as voices were getting louder and louder in the front hallway. Someone was coming this way. Fucking hell. I thought. This really is a museum paradise for a copperfile. There was someone's face painted on one of the walls, which was draped with a shower curtain. You realize for yourself that it was painted with shit. Fuck, I'm sure it was her shit. That old fuck, I always knew, had a shitload of shit in her, as second-rate and low-grade as she was. If shit could be categorized by quality, of course. The stench was unimaginable. The pungent odor of ammonia, shit, old age, and decaying flesh was a delight. In the bathroom, among other things, there were real decomposing male genitalia in plastic bags. 5 of them. There were dirty men's underpants, wisps of hair of various colors, and a bag of my interest, especially when my eyes sank into the tub itself. There was water in it, murky and soapy. Apparently, the old lady did take baths here after all. Hell, here. Floating on the surface of the water was a thick green book. Its soaked pages were separated from the swollen hardcover and the front cover. Apparently, Ada Avalievna had been reading it. Not far from the book floated a translucent, lilac-tinted vibrator. Fucking hell. She was reading and masturbating in a room where all the walls are, say, decorated with her own shit. On one side of the bathtub stood an open oversized jar of body cream, next to it, honey, also in a pot, and a wooden rolling pin with a torn condom in traces of feces and dried blood. That's how the sweetest old lady spent her leisure time. Yes, reading books broadens horizons. Since I couldn't breathe anymore, I knew I had to leave this apartment immediately. My eyes were watering, and the gagging was becoming more and more frequent. First of all, I decided that I needed to go home, make myself some coffee, and sniff some lemon. That would at least kill a little of the odor I was inhaling. Gross. After drinking my coffee and gorging myself on lemon, I decided that I needed to have more coffee right away, but this time I realized that I needed to go outside and smoke. So I did. On my way back, going up to my floor, I met some policemen who offered to be understood. I'm not a fan of such events, but there was nowhere to go. But the incident of Ada Avalievna's death didn't leave me either. Inhaling the smell of Ada Avalievna's dead body, I suddenly thought that the only thing I'd like is to recognize your body's decomposition smell. I looked at the decomposition marks of the crazy old cunt and realized that I'd instead inhale that sweet rotten smell, seeing you lying naked and dead. This is how it will be, and I will see you become a part of this world. I'll see that this is how you become part of this world. I'll feel your body's tiniest atoms and molecules penetrate the parquet, the sheets you lay on the floor as usual. Later, when those sheets are taken to the landfill, your scent and essence will remain in them, and continue to permeate the garbage lying nearby, the soil, maybe wet from recent rain or melted snow. That's how you become part of this world. But a little later. As long as you're lying in my apartment, legless, you're not going anywhere already. Standing and looking at you, decomposing and so defenseless, with your young, firm skin and the slight unshavenness that, like sandpaper, erased the epithelium on my chin, I will suddenly remember the other odors you have marked in me. Why do I think that your odor of putrefaction would not be disgusting to me, and I would not have the slightest urge of nausea and vomiting? And then I suddenly remembered how you and I more than once had too much vodka and went for another bottle in the restaurant near our house. You'd get drunk out of your mind and go throw up. I loved kissing your lips afterward, inhaling your vomit smell, and realizing your vomit's taste. It's the most honest taste and the most honest smell. Oh yeah, you were getting high off of that. Then we'd go and have a few more drinks and go to bed. Remember how long it took us to come, and it hurt a bit because of that. But we came deliciously and copiously. Abundantly, so that in the morning, the whole room was soaked with the smell of cum, our most beautiful cum smell. You and I, slightly hungover, continued our lovemaking to saturate the room with our odors even more. Magical. Then, when the room was ventilated, our scent would travel outside the room to the street and mingle with a million other smells. That's how we became part of the world. It's been a long time since last summer. Even though it's only been a little over 6 months, I feel I'm already living my second eternity. Time has been rolling fast and slow all these days, turning into weeks and months. Listening to our music with you, I immediately remember our balcony, your lap, vodka, mixed feelings, light bulbs, my picture on the wall with the inscription, "Fuck it now," endless cigarettes, vodka again. I loved drinking with you because I knew for sure you loved me. I loved drinking with you because I knew I could wash myself in bed with you. Oh, the taste of you and the smell of you. Have you ever tried to think about why, or rather, why, people give birth? Why do they do it? Why do they do it? Here's a look. There's you, with your road, your destiny, your thoughts, your enclosures, your smells. And there's me, with my fears, jealousies, and silence. We walked always parallel, until we crossed, in defiance of all sorts of laws of geometry, which, you know, are quite contradictory and controversial. It wasn't until our two parallel straight lines crossed that I began to appreciate that the closeness of the two lines of fate was much better. You wouldn't have sizzled or destroyed me, but maybe I wouldn't have been born again. I became weightless. Today, as I was walking somewhere, aimless as always, I realized that I wouldn't want to be born again, really. Why? In fact, this question, why, is the most powerful one. I always ask it when I can't decide to do something. I was walking and thinking, why was I conceived, carried, and born? Why does a woman go through pain to produce offspring for more pain and death as the end result? I simply could not have existed. That fine line of existence and non-existence, before one is born, one does not exist, and no one knows about it. Probably. Before one is born, one does not exist. Or, But this idea is quite funny and a bit ridiculous. In fact, I already existed from the birth of at least my parents, whose sperm and egg matured within them. A part of me lived in each of them individually. As they, too, were produced into the world, they existed in their parents, and thus I existed in their parents. And so on ad infinitum. I, too, was once in very distant times and saw various events. I do not remember them because I did not see them today and not through my eyes. But these data were transmitted through the blood, eggs, and sperm of my ancestors. And I existed in them, incognito, unnoticed even by myself. Like a billion people, my existence began long before any centuries or timelines began. I can safely say that all the good and all the bad is also in me. I absorbed it all from my ancestors through their blood, sperm and eggs. All the filth from the blood, eggs and sperm we swallow, rubbed into our underpants or into our palms or under the edges of our fingernails or into the breasts of other males. Why give birth to filth, or rather, why multiply it? Existence is decay. Emerging from filth, incest, disease, habit, evil, human flesh eventually passes through various stages of putrefaction. Love? No. Just lust. First, it's called growing up, then aging, then death. But we're all born to rot. A useless product of pseudo-evolution, humans have sex, fertilize and impregnate to produce yet another standard set of filth, evil and chromosomes that are doomed to rot anyway. Incineration in a crematorium still results in putrefaction. The ashes, having been scattered by friends or relatives or someone else, fall into the ground, and thus rot, giving life to new growths. These new, innocent sprouts are also rotting. Living equals rotting. Why, when we give life to a child, do we make it a new product for decay? Are we content to suffer the million horrifying biological processes, mucus, pus, feces, flesh, constant bacteria, disease, aging? And this is what we all call the miracle of birth? And this we all call human beauty? Why? A more perverse understanding of miracles and beauty would be unrealistic to come up with. Even when contrasted with ugliness, such beauty becomes even more ugly. And for this we consider ourselves the crown of creation because we produce a new generation? The principle of the slaughterhouse: the next generation is fed and raised to die. Although with animals, it is less prosaic, they are born, fed, forced to reproduce, and killed. With humans, things are much more dramatic. We go through many stages of the system. We have to serve someone for something, obey someone, follow some rules, be cogs in a massive system of being, only to be removed for being unnecessary and eventually doomed to rot. Even a graveyard of steam locomotives is more useful. The only meaning of life is to become fertilizer for the soil from which plants will grow and, having perished, become fertilizer too. From the soil's point of view, you could say it's all zero-waste production. The downside is one, being a completely second-rate material, humans develop a lot of trash, making the recycling cycle more difficult. Apparently, when all this was created, there was a little mistake in the waste management department. Another funny thing is that we often get squeamish when we see worms or the feces of other people or animals. But in essence, these are us too. We become just as much a part of the soil body as the food that goes into our stomachs. Everything is cyclical and just. Some argue that it is because humans are able to think that they are different from all other members of the living world. It'd be pretty difficult to come up with a greater nonsense. Thinking, which wouldn't hurt to prove either, is not proof. And it is more, in fact, an obstacle to happiness. Agreed, it only gets in the way of existence. Experience, do you think it's a positive trait? It's just a disease. A disease. It's a disease that prevents you from living even the slightest bit happier, better a vacuum or being an amoeba or a puppet, or a worm that will turn your dead legless body into humus, which carries even more meaning than is embedded in a human being. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Yes, we are a product to feed those very nasty insects and worms, parasites. Point taken. Fuck. A little later, I'm standing at your grave, and there, underground, little white worms are making their way into the body of your dear wooden coffin, and the moisture that entered the ground from the sky yesterday with the rain is also helping to soften the wood. In a few months, the aspen growing in your headboard will slowly nourish itself with you through its root system. It's powerful, and even its thinnest roots will slowly grow into you and drain your rotting body, and the aspen will turn even greener. A little later, I am standing here over your grave, and you are slowly being gutted there, and you can no longer hurt me and will feel no pain yourself. And now I can say that there is no such thing as love. What is called love is nothing but the worst perversion. Can one love rotting and decaying flesh? But this is existence. We exist in that which has rotted and given vitality to wood and worms. And now it is not me standing over your grave, you over me in the wind, in the photosynthesis in the aspen leaves. When this tree is cut down, it will be used somehow. For example, it will be made into a piece of furniture, and a part of you will be flaunting in someone's house. People there will think that they are living and happy, not realizing that there is a part of you in that tree, disgusting and rotting and causing pain. Then people will throw out this paraphernalia of furniture and it will rot, you will rot again. Or they'll burn it. And you become air. If you rot, you become somebody's food again, and another tree, for example, will grow out of you. And so on and so on. If you get burned, you become part of the air. People will breathe you in and you will become part of them. Plants will breathe you in. And you will be broken down into even smaller atoms and parts. And me along with you. You swallowed me. And I swallowed you. When I die, the same thing will happen to me. And we will be part of other objects and beings, remaining part of each other and becoming an even more significant part of this world. This is our existence. Meaningless, it is doubly amusing and appealing. In essence, we are infinite, just in different states and forms. Even looking at Ada Avalievna's dead and ghastly body, I now realize that she will continue on in other places, in other people, in other objects. It was disgusting to realize I was breathing even the tiniest bit of that old idiot. And one day, the body of Eve and all her many suitors will be ashes, too. And they, too, will become part of this world, passing from one form to another, from one hypostasis to another. And what is now me will also become ashes, and I will nourish this world, growing closer to the cosmos. And I will never die. And I am already immortal. After natural or pathological death, I will acquire a more perfect form of existence, which, if it will be controlled by any laws, it will be the laws of physics, chemistry and so on. But I will have freedom. Ada Avalievna is already free. Each of us will have our own date of freedom. Your freedom has already come, and I am glad I can share it. Then, when I, too, am gone, I too will be buried, and I will slowly become part of this world. And this world will be enriched by the smell of our semen in each other, and you and I's urine odor, barely noticeable, or not noticeable at all on the scale of the planet, will go on. And someone will breathe it all to prolong their life and enrich their existence. And we will never be forgotten, even though we will not be remembered. And we will never be destroyed, we are infinite. Each in our own form and manifestation, we will approach each other again to intersect and part. It's been like this before, we were parallel and, unexpectedly, crossed paths. And parted. The cyclical nature of existence is also infinite. Immortal, we are the infinity of our existence. Immortals, we will be together forever. We will be the continuation. Being part of this world, we will be another Eve, another Ada Avalievna, or someone from the theater of freaks and freaks. Immortals, we will be the stranger who walks up to someone and tells them how to continue surviving and living. Immortals, we will be existence, and thus life, love, joy, decay. But we immortals are in this lack of meaning and find freedom. We immortals will be part of eternity, part of this world forevermore. We, the immortals.